All right, good morning, and welcome back to another quick video to introduce some material for either a World Civilizations class or a Modern Europe class, depending on which one you're in. But this is just a couple of minutes as an introduction to the French Revolution. And if you want to get a sense of how the French Revolution compares to, say, the American Revolution, then take a look at the lyrics to the music we heard on the way in. That was the Marseillaise, the French national anthem. And you'll notice that while the American national anthem, if you recall correctly, Bombs Bursting in Air is about as violent as it gets, and Land of the Free, Home of the Brave is about praise for the effectiveness of the American effort in fighting the British, and then just in general, having this uplifting feeling towards the United States. Well, the Marseillaise is a bit different. You're talking about how soldiers are going to come for your wives and your children, and the blood of the tyrant will run in the streets. So a little bit of a different tone. And that may suggest that in certain ways that the French Revolution is maybe a little bit different from the American one in that respect. And that's true. In general, one of the defining aspects of the French Revolution is its violence and a sense of both the people and activists kind of taking up arms both against the regime and eventually against the revolution's neighbors in Europe, culminating with Napoleon's invasions of many European countries, creating the First French Empire. And I could go on this for about 3 hours or something like that. And I know I can because I've had to. The French Revolution occupies a kind of place in European history where you kind of set your time by it. 1789 is when a lot of courses about European history start. And in many ways, it's considered the beginning of the modern period in Europe, with the fall of the old regime in France and the political activity that's associated with it, as well as kind of the intellectual, cultural activity. And the French Revolution spawns all sorts of things, from national identity in France to national identity in the countries that France attacks and conquers. Responses to the French Revolution, attempting to deal with it, creates all sorts of new stuff. And the impact of the French Revolution is kind of like the Industrial Revolution in the United States or in Europe, hard to overemphasize. And so the French Revolution has some key figures in it that you're probably familiar with, Napoleon, and some that are less so. The study of the Revolution is so expansive. I said I could go on for 3 hours, right? Well, the reason I can go on for 3 hours is I have a PhD in modern European history. My emphasis is modern France, so that's France since 1789, really, and the French Empire. Along with that comes things like African-American history in America since 1789, with the role of nationalism in the United States and in former French colonies in North and West Africa. But, my focus is heavily French, and so one of the questions I had, we had to do these exams where you sat in a room for 3 hours at a time and you completed these questions, these giant essays. And one of the questions I had that I spent 3 hours working on in a room was, is the French Revolution the most important event in European history? And you could argue yes pretty easily. I think I did. Just to give you a sense, I've got a couple of books here. So you can find a book that's this thick that is just about the ideas and ideals behind the French Revolution. This thing's a bit dense, Jonathan Israel's book, but it's everything from the rights of man and citizen, which have a lot of the same things to say as the American Declaration of Independence, but they make it very universal, and well as further defining like what citizenship means, this idea of somebody who actively participates in public life, to the ideas of Robespierre, the idea that violence, revolutionary violence, might be necessary in order to obtain freedom, which is something you're going to see in the rights movements of the 20th century in Africa, in the United States, in Russia, in Asia. It's one that the Americans kind of sidestep, although the American Civil War brings that into question again. And you have so many figures who, in Europe, are extraordinarily important and compelling and have movies made about them, beyond, say, Napoleon or Marie Antoinette, who I think crossed the Atlantic Ocean pretty well and resonate here, but who are for Europeans what, say, like a Thomas Jefferson or an Andrew Jackson is in American history, for those of you who are coming to it from that perspective. So I've got this guy here, Georges Danton, who is this physically intimidating and, by many accounts, unattractive, even by his own admission, figure who's a very populist guy, a man of the people who he believes in bringing change that will benefit everyday folks. He kind of comes into opposition against his old friend Robespierre, who pushes for this more revolutionary ideological thing. And so questions about the role of violence and change, questions about the role of big